Good morning and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. So, we are going to take a look at two chapters today, particularly because they kind of have to do with the same theme and it'll get us right on track for next week. So, let's just dive in. So, chapter 35 actually begins with reiterating a primary regulation, and it is that 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day you shall have a holy Sabbath of solemn rest to the Lord. Whoever does any work on it shall be put to death. You shall kindle no fire in all your dwellings on the Sabbath day. Now, it seems kind of strict, but of course, it's trying to help us to understand how important this day is. But it kind of seems random, but it's not, because immediately after this, Moses is now going to ask that everybody put in their time and effort to build this tabernacle for God. And so it's really important for them to realize that in the midst of building this tabernacle, in the midst of doing all this work that they say is godly work, they still have got to take rest. That's so important. In ministry, in every aspect of our lives, there's moments where you just have to slow down and take a break and be thankful for all that God has given you and to just kind of revel in the presence of God instead of just working all the time. Remembering that God's love is nothing we earn, it's something that was already given to us, already present. And so it's this reminder. I'm going to give you a long list of things that I want you to do, but first and foremost, I want to make sure that you take time to take a break. That's what's happening here. So that's a reminder. Yes, you will always have work to do. There will be always something more to be done. But Sabbath comes before all that work. So then we have Moses. The very next thing Moses says is that from among you there must be an offering. And so I need all of these colored yarns. I need this kind of jewels. I need this kind of wood. Like, we're going to build this tabernacle that God told me on the mountain. So we need the people to give this. And time again, it makes a list of things needed. But the people, it says, with those of you who have hearts that are moved, bring your offering from those whose hearts have been moved. Time and time again. This is never a demand that you must give, whether you like it or not. Time and time again, it is because you are moved by the love of God, by your heart has to be in it and not just you're doing it to follow the crowd, to look good with to somebody else. This is all about having a personal relationship with God, and you're being moved to offer these things. And then again, it says that we need among you those who are skilled at working with yarn, at working with tents, at working with wood, with working with stone, with working with gems. We need all of you, but we only want those whose hearts are moved to do so. Like, this has got to be done with joy, with a sense of gratitude and a positive sense of doing ministry, of working together. They do not want at any way anybody who is negative or resentful or bitter or feels forced to do it. Nope, we want none of that. And so I think it's really interesting that time and time again, it'll say, whose hearts made willing to bring anything for the work that the Lord has commanded. And now we have all these people with their offerings coming, with their skills coming. And it could sound like chaos is about to break out. But if we remember earlier, God had named Bezalel and Oelab, excuse me, my Hebrew names are not very good. But these two men had already been designated by God to kind of be ones in charge to give direction to all the people. So it's not like everybody's just out doing whatever they want, but that they will have a cohesive network that's doing it. I think of so many churches where they just let everybody go off doing their own ministries and then nothing really gets accomplished because everybody's just doing their own thing. There has to be a central vision, a central working together. And so what God has done is says, like, this is not a free for all, but we will have two people who will guide us in creating this. They will be the imaginers and everybody else will bring. And then we're getting into chapter 36 now. So the skillful guys are now kind of in charge, directing traffic, so to speak. And we find out that people's offerings, they're like, we've got too much now. You got to stop. We have to, no more. We got enough. But it's beautiful to see that people are just continuing to give and give to the point that the designers have to say, okay, we need to just put this in check for a moment. I would love to be able to say that in ministry. Oh, we've got too much. Stop. But here we do. But I love this too. It is like it's also a recognition that you have to be good stewards of your resources. And they didn't want to waste anything either. Therefore, they had to say, no, we don't need any more. We don't want things to go to waste. We don't want things sitting in the closet 20 years from now. We don't want things to be just thrown away because we couldn't use it. So they're like, okay, this is where our line is in offerings. I think that's kind of, when you think about churches too, how often do you walk into a church that has tons of things that nobody really needed or they're not making use anymore, and it's like an over offering was given and nobody knows what to do with it, but they don't want to throw it away. But there is a point where you really have to say, this is not helping our ministry anymore. And so the offerings had to stop. And so then the rest of chapter 36 is really just a reiteration of the creation of the tabernacle, showing that it was going according to God's plan. Now, it's tedious reading, I will be honest, just hearing the same thing. But I think it's important to recognize that it is important to have a record of what was done. I mean, there's the record of the dream and then the record of the reality and how that's important to a people who have a long history, that this is something they can go back to. Well, look, God spoke to us this way. This is how it came into creation, and this is how we're utilizing it now. And I see it's now I'm one of those pastors that's a little different, but I love when people are willing to keep a recorded history, when they're willing to keep the picture books, when they're willing to keep things in a way so that their history can be remembered and honored. But so often what happens is history gets thrown in boxes, or we just stop recording because there's nobody to do it. And so it's hard to remember and see where God has spoken and where it's come into fruition and how it's being lived out. And that's what we see, even though it's like sounds like it's repetition, but really it's honoring this history that happens when we stay faithful to God in the long term. And so I think we can get a lot out of these chapters, even though there's a lot of repetition and repeating. It's good for us to honor that. And as I'm going to say, it's Thursday, and so I hope you're able to take some Sabbath this weekend, this Lenten weekend, and find your time with God, and then renew yourself for the work that God has put in front of you. So thanks for joining me, Pastor Amanda, with Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion, and I'll see you next week.